Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Have a great day.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to part 2. We're going to talk more about concept 9 and 12 now, and then we'll get to your questions, which were fabulous. Thank you for the great questions. Okay, concept 9. While Bill discussed leadership as to what we should be looking for in our board of trustees, that's really what the focus of his explanation and writing of that was. I find this to be one of these amazing tools to apply in my personal life as well, and what I shoot to be as a leader when I'm asked to be in that kind of a position. He said, being a leader is not an inherent right, but we are given opportunities to earn that by showing our commitment to the group and in how we handle our job and our services here. Let's be careful, too, that we don't look for leaders that are so perfect that we take the personalities out of it. We will all make mistakes at times. We're flawed, we're fallible, and we may not conform to another's code of morals or ethics. We just try to make the best choices. So, first of all, let's turn to page 36. Now, this is in the back half of your book. It does not have an S in the front. Page 36, or I'm sure most of you have that red book, but that's where you'll find concept 9. And this is the beginning of it. He does have some prelude to it, but here's where I want to go. Turn to page 38. Leadership in AA, ever a vital need. He's got some bullet points, and those are some of what I'm going to highlight and bring to the surface. And I don't want to shortchange the beauty of his words, so we're going to just do a little bit of reading. We'll follow along, just some bullet points. On 39, it starts the second complete paragraph down as the first point. A leader in AA service is therefore a man or woman who can personally put principles, plans, and policies into such dedicated and effective action that the rest of us want to back him up and help him with his job. The next paragraph, another point. Good leadership originates plans, policies, and ideas for the improvement of our fellowship and its services. But in new and important matters, it will nevertheless consult widely before taking decisions and actions. Good leadership will also remember that a fine plan or idea can come from anybody, anywhere, and consequently good leadership will often discard its own cherished plans for others that are better, and it will give credit to the source. The next paragraph, point. Good leadership never passes the buck. Oh, that's a hard one. Next paragraph, point. A politico is an individual who is forever trying to get the people what they want. A statesman is an individual who can carefully discriminate when and when not to do this. He recognizes that even large majorities, when badly disturbed or uninformed, can once in a while be dead wrong. Next paragraph. Nothing, however, can be more fatal to leadership than opposition for opposition's sake. It can never be, let's have it our way or no way at all. And if you skip it down a couple lines, then there is the opposition that casts its vote saying, no, we don't like it. No real reasons are ever given. This won't do. When called upon, leadership must always give its reasons and good ones. The next paragraph, point. Then, too, a leader must realize that even very prideful or angry people can sometimes be dead right when the calm, I know it, it's hard. When the calm and the more humble are quite mistaken. I know that's really hard to hear that, isn't it? So, but we're going to talk about that in a second. Next, skip 2 paragraphs. The last one is another point. Another qualification for leadership is give and take. The ability to, I love this, compromise cheerfully whenever a proper compromise can cause a situation to progress in what appears to be the right direction. And skip a few lines and you see, we cannot, however, compromise always. Now and then it is truly necessary to stick flat-footed to one's conviction about an issue until it is settled. So once again, I need to know when to compromise and when. I don't have to be ugly about standing firm in what I believe is the right thing. I may not change your mind, but that's okay. But this would be crossing an appropriate line of principles for me. But I don't have to be ugly and mean about it to you. I just need to stand firm on that. The next paragraph, these three are so powerful. The leadership is often called upon to face heavy and sometimes long-continued criticism. This is the acid test. No one likes criticism. I know that I've made just the gentlest of suggestions sometimes. And it sounds like I was yelling at the top of my lungs because that's how it felt to them. So my goal is always to just be able to stand there and accept and hear what is being said. And again, we'll talk about that more specifically in a second, but nobody likes criticism. We all want to do the best job we can. We're all going to do the best job we can. But that life will include this. So how do I best handle it? Okay, we've got our constructive critics, he says, our friends, give them a careful hearing. And in the next paragraph, we have our destructive critics. They power drive, they're politickers, they make accusations. Maybe they're violent and malicious. They pitch gobs of rumors, gossip, and general scuttlebutt to gain their ends. All for the good of AA, of course. But in AA, we have at last learned that these folks, and I love this line, who may be a trifle sicker than the rest of us, need not be really destructive at all, depending very much on how we relate ourselves to them. Now, this is the gold. This next paragraph is the gold. To begin with, we ought to listen carefully to what they say. Sometimes they are telling the whole truth, at other times a little truth. More often, though, they are just rationalizing themselves into nonsense. If we are within range, the whole truth, the half-truth, or no truth at all can prove equally unpleasant to us. That is why we have to listen so carefully. If they've got the whole truth, or even a little truth, here's the tools we get, okay? Then we had better thank them and get on with our respective inventories, admitting we were wrong. How grown up is that? If it is nonsense, we can ignore it, or we can lay all the cards on the table and try to persuade them. But failing this, okay, because he knows you're going to try it, but you will fail. Failing this, we can be sorry they are too sick to listen, and we can try to forget the whole business. There are few better means of self-survey and of developing genuine patience than the workouts these usually well-meaning but erratic brother members afford us. This is always a large order, and we shall sometimes fail to make good on it ourselves, but we must keep trying. I have referred more people to those three paragraphs, especially this concept as a whole. But it always boils down to, they're not doing what I want them to do. I'm having problems with this, having problems with that. If I boiled this down to a phrase, what this would be to me is, I am being taught how to separate the information from the emotional delivery. That's why I have to listen so carefully. Is there any validity? It's just so hard when someone comes at you with you're feeling attacked. What's the natural human thing? Attack back, get defensive. I shut down because I'm preparing my retort. But am I listening? Am I angry because I'm busted on something, I'm guilty about something, and I don't want to have been found out? I don't know. But this is why our guideline, if there's something to it, thank them get on with my inventory and go on about my business. If not, how can I let that go? They're just too sick to listen. I like that part because it just makes it better. That's what I always get to. They're just too sick to listen. The next paragraph, now we come to the all-important attribute of vision. Vision is, I think, now this is Bill's writing. I'm not making this stuff up. This is Bill's writing. The ability to make good estimates both for the immediate and for the more distant future. And if you'll skip a sentence, it says, well, it talks about, we always tell ourselves one day at a time. Here's the definition as he wrote, one day at a time. But that valuable principle really refers to our mental and emotional lives and means chiefly that we are not foolishly to repine over the past nor wishfully to daydream about the future. And again, you wouldn't know of this kind of, tools and gold is in here. And so that's what I want to show you what's in here. Now, let's go to that top of that next page. And the second paragraph down, it talks about if you're going to try something out, maybe try it experimentally. But that third paragraph, last sentence says, and this is, again, about vision, whether it be in your home, your work, or your meeting choices. The temptation will almost always be to seize the nearby benefits and quite forget about the harmful precedents or consequences that we may be setting in motion. This is why when we, on a whim, on a personality, alter, for example, a group format, we set a precedence that that's now okay to do. When we allow things to happen, well, they're my friend. Well, next week somebody else is going to have a friend too. Let's be very careful that we protect the whole and not focus on the singular one. The unity, tradition one, the unity of the whole comes first. So be careful. Think about it before you go making decisions like that. It might be good today, but what about the precedent I'm setting? So that is key. Now, if you'll turn over to the next page one more time, everybody will relate to this. Second to the last paragraph. Once again, you would not know these valuable things are here. Second to the bottom paragraph, it says, this is particularly true in the area of 12th step work in which nearly all of us are actively engaged. Every sponsor is necessarily a leader. The stakes, about as big as they could be, a human life, and usually the happiness of a whole family hang in the balance. What the sponsor does and says, how well he estimates the reactions of his prospects, how well he times and makes his presentation, how well he handles criticisms, and how well he leads his prospect on by personal spiritual example. These qualities of leadership can make all the difference, often the difference between life and death. One more time, an awesome paragraph on sponsorship. It isn't about ego, it's about a responsibility that we have agreed to. What are we doing? Okay. Those are some of the highlight points I wanted to talk about in 9. And then in 12, let's turn to 12, which should be on page 62. That's, you may not know this, but that is one sentence with lots of commas. I will not be reading it. Okay. The conference charter, which we looked at earlier, y'all know where that is now, right? Okay. Was created in 1950, formalized in 55. He says it's the substance of the contract the groups made with the Board of Trustees when we came of age in St. Louis. And this concept expounds on the scope of Article 12 in that conference charter. Did you know that we can actually change the steps or traditions? Yeah, we can. Take a look on that page, the third paragraph. It says, but Article 12, but in our charter, it has expounded into the steps, the 12 traditions, okay? If you think about that, stands in a class, an amendment or a cancellation of any of these vital warranties, or changing the steps or changing the traditions, would require the written consent of 3/4 of all the directory listed AA groups who would actually vote on any such proposals, and the considerable time of 6 months is allowed for careful deliberation. Although changes in the warranties of Article 12, the steps and traditions, thus have been made difficult, they have not been made impossible. The point being, if the majority, 3/4 of all the registered groups worldwide, felt that we should change something, it would be based on that overwhelming majority, not of the few. They want the worldwide fellowship to be in sync with that. Now, what's the numbers that we're looking at? Worldwide, there are 106,227 registered groups worldwide. That would mean we'd have to hear from, in writing, 79,670 groups within a 6-month period of time. I don't think we have to worry about any changes. But once again, it would be the fellowship worldwide as a whole that would feel the need to make the change. So, we can't, again, get that many to contribute financially, so I don't think we have to worry about it. Okay. I recently read something, and I really, I like how they're thinking. It said, when we read, we are going to touch on each of the warranties, and it says if you replace the word conference with AA group or AA member, you would get one more time this insight of how that would apply to you personally. So when I read these warranties, each one of them, then that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to insert that. So, okay, you'll see warranty 1, the bottom of 63. They're all in italics as we go along. So if I read that with the adjustment, it would say, the conference, group, or AA member shall never become the seat of perilous wealth or power. So we don't want any one person in charge of running the group giving directives or, it's my way or no way. We want this to be a group conscience. And so the 7th tradition protects us from having too much money, and rotation protects us from anybody having too much authority or power. The groups have never 100% supported our services financially. The difference has been made up in our literature sales. The General Service Office is our office. They work for us. And the late Don Nicholson, who was a Class B trustee from Fargo, North Dakota, he said, if you're not contributing to our welfare, you're on welfare. So I thought that was a nice way to make all of us sit up and participate. So, is your group contributing? In the handout, if you'll turn to your last page of the handout, you'll see some of the numbers there. Just look at the stuff above the stars. The below we'll come back to. It says that for the year-ending numbers of 2006, the group-only contributions. Now, the income is based on group contributions, conventions, personal contributions, birthday fund, in memoriam, all kinds of, but we're only going to focus on group donations, was over 5 million. I give you over 58,000 registered groups in U.S. and Canada. only 26,622 made a contribution. So it's not so much that those groups need to contribute more, it's more groups need to contribute. So that's where we get that 45.5% that I talked about earlier. Is that the amount of groups making the decisions for us? The treasurer of the General Service Board says that if each member now, you know we don't take membership, but they have this way of roughly guessing where we are. If each member contributed $6.37, that isn't even 2 Starbucks in 1 year. Each member did $6.37, or each group contributed $142.42, and that's of the registered groups. We would be 100% self-supporting. Now, that doesn't seem like very much. I realize some groups are more flush than others. But the point is your group contributing? I, again, would not have a home group that did not contribute. I wouldn't go to a meeting that did not contribute. So check that out. If you don't know, ask your treasurer. And if not, ask them why. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't know where to send it. Maybe they don't know anything about it. Then it will be your opportunity to share with them how to do that. So what were the area, if then they give us by capita. Okay, so in 2006, if our goal is $6.37, where did we end up? The highest area contributor was Delaware. They averaged $10.04. Those guys are always the highest. I don't know. They must have a lot of wealthy people in Delaware because they always are the highest contributor. I check these things. Okay. My area averaged $4.46. Your area, $3.01. And the lowest was Quebec with 12 cents, Northeast Quebec. So we've got quite a range, okay? But once again, are you contributing? Okay. So it's kind of interesting to see, again, where are we? Okay. The second warranty is on the next page, 62. Sufficient operating funds plus an ample reserve should be its prudent financial principle. The state of New York and the IRS say that for businesses like ours, we can have a 1-year prudent reserve. Ending 2006, we have an 8.8 months or a little over $10 million as our prudent reserve. A few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we had just about a 1-year limit. And they wanted to draw that down. And how they did that, well, they can't give it to anybody because, we supported them. What they did is they lowered the price of the 4th edition Big Book. They drew it down, and when they got to the right level, that's when in July of 2004, they put the cost of the book back up to $6. Now, considering that book in 1939 sold for $3.50, and in 2007 the General Service Office sells it for $6, it's not like we're making a ton of money because you can't buy a hardcover book of our size for $6. Warranty 3, if you turn a couple more pages to 68, it says none of the conference group members shall ever be placed in a position of unqualified authority over any of the others. And this just simply reiterates concept 4 regarding the voting inclusion and the right of participation. Concept 4 is on that same page just a little below it, that all important decisions be reached by discussion, vote, and whenever possible, by substantial unanimity. That lets that body know that the majority, but not just the simple, but the strong majority support this, whatever the decision is. So, again, make sure you get your minority opinion there. Has everyone spoken what they need to say? And then you vote on what you believe is the best thing. Don't be checking over with somebody to see what they're going to do. And that's why I was like silent ballot votes, to tell you the truth, so that you can vote what you believe is the right thing. And you're not going by, okay, I'll raise my hand too. Vote what your conscience is. That's what we're counting on. Warranty 5 is on the next page there on 69, that no conference group member action ever be personally punitive or an incitement to public controversy. And punitive is inflicting punishment. We don't do that. We of all people can least afford the risk of resentments and conflicts which would result in a temptation to punish in anger. We don't do that. Now once again, it's so beautifully stated. Turn to page 70 and go up 2 paragraphs from the bottom. Let us suppose. I want to talk about this because this, Millie and I were talking about earlier, this is kind of a clouds floating in the air kind of discussion going on that I'm hearing about. Maybe you are too. But let's not just talk about the problem. Let's look into the solution. It says, let us suppose that AA does fall under sharp public attack or heavy ridicule, and let us take the particular case where such pronouncements happen to have little or no justification in fact. Almost without exception, it can be confidently estimated that our best defense in these situations would be no defense whatever, namely complete silence at the public level. And again, I'm not going to read everything, but skip over to the next page, because in continuation of this, the second complete paragraph down, it says, but under no condition should we exhibit anger or any punitive or aggressive intent. Surely this should be our inflexible policy. Inflexible. We do not engage in public controversy like that. That next section is a lot about what do you do with tradition violators and things like that. Our General Service Office is not a police operation. Sometimes you wish there was the AA police around, but, we don't have a police operation. A lot of things can be easily explained by us. It's just a different interpretation of the traditions. And he says that, most problems can be solved with mutual understanding and good temper. If we just, once again, listen carefully, be willing to compromise, be open-minded, things like that. We can most of the time solve these differences because we've come to the table with peace and solution in our design. But I want to talk about the bottom of 72. There is, too, a grave problem that we've never yet had to face. This would be in the nature of a deep rift running clear across AA. A cleavage of opinions so serious that it might involve a withdrawal of some of our membership into a new society of their own, or in their making an alliance with an outside agency in contravention of the AA tradition. This would be the old story of split and schism of which history is so full. It might be powered by religious, political, national, or racial forces. It might represent an honest effort to change AA for the better. But it would certainly pose the conference a question of what to do or not to do. Now, again, I because of time and so forth, and I'm not going to read all of this, but what he's saying is that we would actually make the invitation to go ahead and try it. We're not afraid of you trying new things, or just don't call it Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you go to about 10 lines up from the very bottom, it starts off, to all those who wish to secede from AA, we extend a cheerful invitation to do just that. If they can do better by other means, we're glad. If after a trial they cannot do better, we know that they face a choice. They can go mad or die, or they can return to Alcoholics Anonymous. The decision is wholly theirs. As a matter of fact, most of them do come back. So we don't have to worry, but let's, again, not go into a public controversy. Just don't call yourselves AA. Going on, it says, in the light of all this experience, it becomes evident that in the event of really extensive split, we would not have to waste time persuading the dissenters to stay with us. If, in good confidence and cheer, we could actually invite them to secede, and we could wish them well if they did so. Should they do better under their new auspices and change conditions? Hey, we would ask ourselves if we could not learn from their fresh experience. But if it turned out they did worse under other circumstances, and listen to this, that there was a steady increase in their discomfort and their death rate, the chances are very strong that most of them would eventually return to AA. Without anger or coercion, we would need only to watch and to wait upon God's will. Bill has thought of everything. We're not going to be so Pollyanna that we would never ever think that someone would want to, leave AA or talk bad about it, or that we'll always stay one big happy family. No, he's real aware. He's a realist, and a visionary and a realist also. But I appreciate him thinking about those kinds of things in advance, because that may happen one day. Now, one of the reasons that I wanted to kind of focus on that is if you go back to the handout and the bottom part below the stars, I don't know, what is going on here in Alcoholics Anonymous? Maybe Southern California isn't the best place to take a look at it because it is such a large population. But what is going on? These figures are from the conference manual, last year's and this year's. If we use how do you determine what is a growth rate, what isn't? I went out of in the fourth edition, going to the forward to the second. It makes a reference statement that at present our membership is pyramiding at the rate of about 20% a year. So I use that just as a comparison, okay, because we all have that in our book. So if you look at the numbers, groups and members worldwide, U.S., Canada, and so forth. And then you look over at the far right of the percentages of what increased in 1 year, but look what decreased. Where did the groups in Canada go? 1 out of 5, roughly 1 out of 5 folded. That's 1 year. They're down 13%. I'm like, did they come to the U.S. because we're up 13%? But where did they go? I mean, the reason I did these numbers is because I do this thing called by the numbers, and it's just, a little geeky thing again. It's plugging in all the numbers and stuff like that. But when I saw that Canada went from 62-14 groups down to 48, I thought, what? And this is what spurred me to do this little chart because, again, what am I doing? What am I doing? So let's make sure the program of recovery is being passed on. And the last warranty on that same page 74, that though the conference or an AA group or a member may act for the service of Alcoholics Anonymous, it shall never perform any act of government, and that, like the Society of Alcoholics Anonymous which it serves, the conference or group or member itself will always remain democratic in action and in thought. In addressing the General Service Conference, Bill said, we, which means you and I, are the heirs of this structure. It's passed on to us. We are the ones here that are responsible for those behind us as those in front of us were. So let's each of us do our part and keep it strong and unified for those yet to come. Thank you. Okay. Okay. I know we have, I believe, a 9 o'clock closing time, so I'm going to talk really fast on your questions. Thank you so much for the questions. And oddly, interestingly enough, I had several ask the same one, which was, why do we have 7 non-alcoholics on the Board of Trustees? Okay. Because of time, I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to direct you to page S61 in the front of your manual. It talks about non-alcoholic Class A trustees. AA's debt to those who do not share our disease but willingly share our problems is immense. Going back to the beginning, Bill wrote, in the days when AA was unknown, it was the non-alcoholic trustees who held up our hands before the general public. They supplied us with ideas. They voluntarily spent hours on end working side by side with us and among the grubbiest of details. They gave freely of their professional and financial wisdom. Now and then they helpfully mediated our difficulties. Written in '66, these words hold true today. Non-alcoholic trustees remain a rich source of wisdom and perspective, and since they need not maintain anonymity, which is the key, they can, quote, represent AA publicly. They do not have an anonymity factor. This is another key reason why it's important that we have our non-alcoholics on our Board of Trustees, and they're able to appear on behalf of AA. Another question was, how are they elected? If you continue reading down at the bottom, it gives you the election procedure. If that's confusing, I can maybe explain it to you in private later on. So that is why we have our non-alcoholic trustees. It used to be, though, that they were the majority number. And in '66, they became the minority number, from 7 to 14 alcoholics. How many people have tried to change the first 164 pages of the big book? I'm not sure. I'm sure many of you thought, I need to rewrite this, so I'm sure you wanted to change it. But I do know that in my book, which is dated 1978, that there really are some changes in the first 164 pages, and I always like to complain about those as I'm reading in the book study. I always like to point those out that they changed it in my book. So they really did. It wasn't like, we say, oh, when did they write this? No, they really did do it differently. And if so, what changes have been suggested? Okay, and I just kind of touched that. The concepts, if minority is heard, does it matter because majority opinion wins? And when you are heard but not listened to, minority opinion is very, very valuable. Please don't ever discount that. Your voice may have somebody go, I didn't think about it like that. You know what? I do tend to go this way. Now, again, make your presentation. Don't just say, I don't like it. No. Give a good reason. Give a why. And please, please do not say, it's in violation of the traditions. Then I'm going to ask you, okay, which one? I'm going to ask you to be specific. Could you tell me which one and why do you feel that it's in a violation? Because I would like to understand, because I didn't see it that way. So be prepared. Don't just be hasty about your suggestions, but you are heard. Please know that you are heard, and it is important. And it's not a matter of winning. If the majority feels that other way, then I have to then be gracious and accept the group's conscience. What constitutes a member of AA? How does New York Board of Trustees define a member? The same way we do in Tradition 3. The long form states all who suffer from alcoholism, and the short form, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. If there was something more on that question, I wasn't clear. What positions have you personally held for GSO or AAWS? What inspired you to do so? And my sobriety date is February the 8th, 1976. I've been sober a little over 31 years. I had my first general service commitment in Minneapolis as a general service representative. I have held that position in two other areas of the country 3 times altogether. I have never done the other levels of service like district committeeman or delegate or anything like that, but I have believed so strongly in the commitment of having a voice for that group. Time doesn't really allow me to do a lot of general service work so much today in my area. Those people meet so often. They have monthly meetings and other monthly meetings and lots of area assemblies and so forth. It doesn't really allow me the time to really 100% do that commitment. So at this time, I don't have that. But I still now and then will go once a year to an assembly just to kind of get in the feel and get in the air of that. And it just became something that inspired me. I just got so interested in it. And I like I said, I was two plus years sober, and I was on fire, and I needed to direct that energy, and it's been never ending. I've never gotten tired listening and learning about these concepts. And I think that is, I know what, we got a real quick question. How are people elected to the General Service Board? Will we ever have trustees from countries other than the U.S. and Canada? Not for our general service structure, we won't, because there are general service boards and offices around the world. We're just the senior, most experienced one. And how they get elected, again, I'll refer you to the trustees in the front part of the manual that explains it very well, or go and ask your general service representative in your group, because I know you got one. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.